This is May 18, 2012. This is Justice Dunder Chief, where we'll be interviewing someone today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Andre.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Evelyn Greene. I'm from Fredericton, New Brunswick. I was born and raised in Boyce, 62 years old now, and I lived away for 30-some years. Came back to New Brunswick in and around 2004. I was thinking of coming back here to retire, and through a sequence of events and some health issues, I ended up in Chalmers Hospital in 2009, hooked up to a heart monitor, and at which time I witnessed a paramedic and 3 nurses pill popping, and when I reported it, there was a major backlash. Even the ER doctor in charge that night, the supervisor, her name is Linda Hebb, she would not come near me, and to this day, 3 years later, I have not seen a report whatsoever of what she's written. But the nurses reported the next morning that I was so out of my mind I needed lockdown. So what happened to me, my family doctor came in and she was told by these nurses, so she wanted to rule out any pathology. And she wrote me a letter and she told me that she did not see any herself or any depression. And so they brought this Dr. Cully Potter in, and she came through the door and she said, "Miss Green, last night you didn't see anything, you didn't hear anything," and she was stomping her feet, and she didn't want to listen to anything I had to say. And I told her I wasn't depressed, I wasn't delusional or out of my mind or whatever. And so I was very suspicious at that time, having had worked in a law firm years ago as a secretary, and I thought, you know, I'm better be careful here. And she did say to me, sometimes physical pain can lead to mental illness. So she came in finally a little while later and she said, "I'm going to release you." And I said, "That's fine, but would you mind putting in writing what you said about physical pain leading to mental illness?" And that was, she spinned her heel and she went out of there like, you know what. And then my family doctor came in, and then Dr. Potter came in, and she just before that she was considering letting me go home, and then my family doctor came in to say, "Just go along with it, Evelyn, don't make a fuss." So I was told I was going to be put down in psychiatry, but they didn't tell me what room I would be into, which I just thought was a regular psych unit. And a security guard and nurse Cheryl Mulholland came along with a wheelchair and said, "Get your things together in a hurry, you're going with us." So I didn't want to ruffle any feathers, so I got into the wheelchair, went down, and they didn't go in the normal door of psychiatry. They went into a different door that I was not familiar with. And someone opened the door, and I learned that what I was actually going into was what is known as I later found out is known as a lockdown security room, known as the Concentrated Nursing Area, CNC3. And it's a locked place where you are not allowed to go anywhere other than maybe to the shower. And when I got in there, I seen it was sort of an austere room. It was dark, and it had one bed, a table, and that was about it. I asked to make a phone call, and the RN, she told me right away that I was not allowed a phone call and I was not allowed visitors, and that it was for my own good. And she was an RN named Jill Cowley. And she said, we have to lock all your things up. You're going to be strip searched. So I had to take all my clothes off in front of a rolling camera, and she took all my belongings. So there I was stuck. I had nowhere to go. So I decided, because of my implanted heart defibrillator and my hypoglycemia and my other health issues, that and I have what is known as prolonged QT syndrome, which is a serious heart condition. I decided I best cooperate or they'll restrain me and I'll be dead.
Yes.
And I didn't know what their plans for me was anyway. And believe me, when you're put in a spot like that, you say to yourself, am I going to come out of here alive? And so supper came in and I wouldn't eat. I kept asking to see my heart doctor, Dr. Harvey. They said no. About 8 o'clock that night, or somewhere around that time, a new nurse came in, Roger LeBlanc. And no, Roger LaBelle, I'm sorry. And just getting back one little step here, Jill Cowley came in before she left, and she said, myself and the LPN nurse, we do not see any reason for your lockdown. You're cooperative, you're organized, you know, you're not suicidal, and you're doing very, very well, you're cooperative. So when Mr. LaBelle came in, he saw that I didn't eat supper, and he knew I had hypoglycemia, so he said, let me go make you some toast and tea, which he did. And then he said, we are going to write our reports up, so hopefully you will get out of here tomorrow, because we do not see the reason for your lockdown, and we think you should report doctor abuse. And he made the tea and everything. At 10 o'clock, though, he gave me a drug called olanzapine, which had, unbeknownst to me, been ordered by Dr. Potter, and it's an antipsychotic medication. It's contraindicated for my heart problem. People have died from taking this pill, especially if they have heart problems. Eli Lilly is the manufacturer, and they've been sued all over North America for this drug because they hadn't properly stated the risks associated with it at one time. But the doctor would have known in 2009 in December, when this happened, that it would have been contraindicated for me. And so before Jill had, then I slept that night, and the next morning Jill came in again on a Saturday, and she said to me, when there's going to be a new psychiatrist come in to see you at lunchtime, she said, just smile, and if he asked you if anything happened in the ER, she said, you say no. And she said, just smile, and when you get out of here, you run like hell and report it. So a Dr. Bagarva came in at around lunchtime. I remember that just like it was yesterday, and he said to me, Miss Green, could you be here for a free lunch? And I said, I can assure you, doctor, I'm not here for a free lunch. He said, did anything happen in ER? And I said, yes, it did, but I'm reluctant to talk about it because look where I ended up. And he said, don't worry, my dear, I'm going to release you. And he put down diagnosis unknown. But the problem with Dr. Bagarva is that although he was nice to me, he smiled and everything, and he even found humor in the fact that I lost my liberty overnight, didn't know if I was going to die or not, me with a major heart condition, and he knew the rules had been broken. There had been no proper, there had been a Form 1 filled a couple days later apparently, but there's supposed to be Form 2, 3, 4, 5, and 34 before the doctor is allowed to give you this psychiatric drug. And then they have a tribunal chair who is supposed to be notified right away too. He's got to meet within 72 hours because I was an involuntary, over 16, non-consenting patient. They could give me my regular meds, but in order to give me anything new and so forth, like a psychiatric drug that I wasn't consenting to, they had to go to the tribunal, or they had to call an advocate, or they had to call my family, my next of kin. It's all in the Mental Health Act, and they did none of these. And the tribunal chair at that time was Matthew Tweedy from Cox and Palmer, and I don't think that he was ever notified, but that tells me something, because if he wasn't notified in my case, how many other cases has he not been notified in time? And what is his role? If he knows the nurses and the doctors are not following the rules, then he has a responsibility. He's getting paid by the province. And the problem with that is that Cox and Palmer represent Regional Health Authority B and certain of the hospitals, including Chalmers. So who do you think they're going to believe or take up for? Are they going to take up for the mental health patient, or are they going to take up for the cash cow, the hospital? It's a big, major conflict that you have the same law firm representing the sick patients that is representing the hospital. And then I had Mr. Richard, the ombudsman, do an investigation. He did what I call a half of an investigation, but he did write a letter to the Regional Health Authority pointing out that the hospitals in New Brunswick, the psychiatric units, were not following the rules under the Mental Health Act, and it was not isolated to Chalmers. Now you think about it. There's been a guy who was found hanging in Chalmers Hospital by his own belt. And he was in a concentrated nursing unit like me. So where did he get the belt? A friend of mine said, well, maybe a friend took it into him. What friend's going to take a belt into somebody, and where are you going to get a friend to go in there if they were like me and no friends were allowed and you weren't allowed a phone call? Then there's a recent case of a 22-year-old girl in St. John Regional Hospital who was murdered by another patient, and where's that in our paper? Irving newspaper is falling way behind in reporting anything detrimental to our government. I have written Mr. Irving many times. I've sent him court documents, and I finally realized why he has wanted to stay silent. And what I want to say too today is that you and I, Andre, have agreed to do a few interviews to come up to where I am today and the corruption that I've uncovered, including the fact that Ambulance New Brunswick is illegally incorporated under two acts. One is the Crown, and one is they're registered under another number under the Companies Act by letters patent. I have the copies here, and then I was beaten up at, I was delivering a right to information to Ambulance New Brunswick because I was trying to find out information about the paramedic who is pill popping in the hospital. His name is Dennis Boyce. He's former military. If anyone has any information about him, I would like to hear it, whether it's good or bad. And when I went up to deliver the referral, this paramedic was there that day, Dennis Boyce. He called 4 police officers in 4 different cruisers. And I had told him that day when I went in there, I asked him if he would take my blood pressure because I was feeling sick. And he refused. And this was in the paramedic bay, which is supposed to be a public facility.
Yes.
And a Crown corporation. And they are supposed to help people in need who drop by there if they have a problem. And me with a heart defibrillator and everything, like, how much worse can it get, right? And I have evidence from a download of my implanted defibrillator that I had suffered what they call sinus tachycardia that day. And I had, when the police come, there was 4 of them, including, like, there was 3 male and a woman named Nancy Rideout. And Nancy Rideout, she grabbed me. I was doing nothing wrong, and she grabbed me, and my arm went up like that. I had papers in my hand, and she said that I hit her. And when someone comes at you in dogpile fashion, and they're coming, and you've got a nauseated stomach, your reaction just goes like that. And I never had a criminal record in my life. I'm not abusive. I do not like abuse. I hate the thought of a man beating a woman, let alone a woman beating another woman. But that day they beat me up that day, and I have the pictures here to show you the bruises, because and the other thing is, when they did this to me, they put handcuffs on me and said I was under under arrest for assaulting a police officer. They assaulted me first.
Yes.
And this is what is going on in Fredericton. Do I look like somebody who would really want to go out and fight with the police? So anyway, they handcuffed me, took me outside, and made me stand in the parking lot while they kept tightening the handcuffs to a point of torture. And I said to her, my hands were behind my back, and she kicked me in the leg. I have bruises on my arms, and I said to her, my defibrillator feels like it's going to pop right out of my chest. She said, well, if it does, we have paramedics here. There were 3 paramedics standing there watching, and my car was there, and my nitro puffers were in my purse in the car. And she said, I'm taking you to headquarters, and I said, could I get my puffer out of the car? And she said no. She hit my head, took her fingers and dug them into my shoulders, which could have loosened the leads to my defibrillator. She could have easily killed me that day. And here I was suffering from sinus tachycardia. And when you're in that, most people are dizzy, feeling ill, and whatever, which I was. And even in her report, she put down that I told her that day I was sick to my stomach. So here's the photographs, because after they arrested me for assaulting police, I went around to the front of the police station, and I wrote out a complaint against the 4 police officers, and guess what the chief of police did?
What was that?
He allowed them to investigate themselves.
Yes.
Okay? And the paramedics at Ambulance New Brunswick gave the CCTV video camera to evidence to guess who? One of the culprits, Constable Blanchette. He's the one that received the evidence from Robin O'Hara at Ambulance New Brunswick.
Yes.
It doesn't get worse than that. It doesn't. And there was no proper investigation. The chief wrote it off as, he said, apparently said, I have 4 officers here who have the same story. And one officer, Daryl Carter, said he didn't make it there that day, but he did. And the dispatch records show that he did.
Yes.
And then I find out that David Banks, who is the head of the dispatch, gave a 911 audio evidence to Constable SD on December 2nd to give to the Crown Prosecutor, Christopher Levine. And Christopher Levine and the Crown have denied ever receiving that disclosure.
Yes.
And Constable Esty assures me, as does David Banks, that the evidence was given from David Banks to Constable Esty, and Constable Esty said he gave it to Christopher Levine. So where did it go to?
Yes.
And I am before Provincial Chief Judge Jackson today. I'm not getting the disclosure I'm entitled to. The Crown has now said they're not going to give me any further disclosure. I've asked for the original CCTV version of the video evidence from Ambulance New Brunswick. They have 14 cameras that are motion censored. And that day, there's no picture of me entering the building or leaving the building, but there is of other people. Now, there's the thing called common sense theory, that there is just no way that other people could be seen going in there, and they even admit I was inside there, and there's 4-minute splittings on there. I had a firm in Ontario called NCI Forensic Intelligence. I got a forensic analysis done of the CCTV video evidence that was given to the Crown from the police through Constable Blanchette. And this man in Ontario said it's grossly edited. You know, we need to get the original.
Yes.
And do you think Ambulance New Brunswick will give me the original? No.
So today the hearing is it attempting to get disclosure of the video?
Yes, I filed a motion last week, and I'm going to give you a copy, Andre, to put on your website.
Okay, we'll put that in the description area of the video.
Pardon?
We'll put a link to that in the description area of the video so everyone can read it.
Why I want to do that is because I know the 3 most important cases that were determined in the Supreme Court of Canada. The first one, and the most important probably, is Stitchcomb. Then there is R versus O'Connor. And they involve first and third party disclosure. The police are considered first party along with the Crown. And I haven't got what they call the McNeil reports either, which is the history of abuse with the police. And just before I go in today, I want to say that I didn't know you until just a couple of months ago when I found out that you have a claim against one of the same officers who beat me up, Nancy Rideout.
Yes.
So why was that hidden from me? Nobody told me. That day in the police department, I said, have you got a history of abusing people? And she said, no, never in my years of being on the force. Wow.
So we should leave it right there so we make it in time for the court hearing.
Oh, but I want to say that this motion will be on your website, because it talks about the 3 Supreme Court decisions, and the Judge Jackson is playing hardball with me getting any disclosure. And I understand there's been another lady in town, Sally Brooks.
Yes.
Sally Brooks, who was refused disclosure. Now, Stitchcomb, O'Connor, and McNeil puts it right out there. Nobody can be expected to have a fair hearing unless they know the case against them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Disclosure is one of the most important things under Section 7 and 15 of the Charter of Rights. And why are judges, provincial judges, there's Chief, I was first before Chief Dixon, then Judge Richards. One day she even called me an outright liar, and I had evidence with me to prove her wrong, and she said, I still don't believe you. Then I get the Chief Provincial Judge who has shown bias as well. I mentioned that to him. He said, I can't go off the case. I am what they called
seized of the matter.
Seized of the matter.
Yes.
So I'm before what I call 3 biased judges, and people say to me, get a lawyer now, get a lawyer now. And I say to myself, through all the studying I've done and everything, and what I've seen and heard, there is no lawyer that, no matter how good he is going to come here and get me off this charge. I've accepted that.
Yes.
Look what happened to Luke Begin in the Stafford case.
Yes.
And by the way, if anybody has any knowledge of who the expert witness was for the Crown on the video evidence that was presented that they said wasn't good enough, which was all over TV, all across Canada, showing this man being beaten by Fredericton cops. But somehow Stafford won his case. Now, that's like saying a picture is not worth 1,000 words here in New Brunswick. This is a corrupt provincial place. I'm not saying every judge is corrupt. I know so far I have great respect for Chief Drapeau. I have nothing against Mr. Michael Gray, the registrar. He has been, his office has been very accommodating and do their job, and then I leave, you know?
Yes.
And so where I think the biggest problem stems is from the provincial level, and certain of the Court of Appeal, where some of the lawyers have come from the same law firm, Cox and Palmer, as does Michael Tweedy, the man I mentioned earlier, who is the tribunal chair.
Yes.
Before him, there was Mr. Morrison, who is now a judge.
Yes.
And Mr. Morrison wasn't sure the rules were being followed either. So you can imagine they don't like me when I come to court. Then I was before Judge Dixon, and I found out later on that he was also from Cox and Palmer. So that's the problem in New Brunswick. There's about 3 big law firms, Cox and Palmer, Stuart McKelvey, and Michael McGinnis Cooper, I think it is.
Yes.
I mean, they've got everything. It's like the old Wild West. They've got the whole place surrounded.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll leave the this first video on that note, and thank you for the interview today. We'll be continuing on with some further interviews to fully deliver your story.
Yes, because there's lots more, Andre. I have a story that proves that there is major corruption with some big government officials here, and it involves the Irvings.
Okay, well, leave it on that. Thank you. Have a great day.